No one came for my son's surgery. 3 days later, my mom texted, "Need $10,000 for your sister's wedding dress." I sent $1 with a note, "Buy a veil." Then I cut off their access to my accounts. The bank manager called the next morning. Imagine, if you will, standing utterly alone in a sterile hospital hallway, your 7-year-old son, your whole world, just wheeled into emergency surgery. You call everyone, beg for support, and get nothing. Absolute radio silence. Then, just 3 days after facing that nightmare completely by myself, I got a text message. A text that not only revealed the shocking depth of my family's betrayal, but brazenly demanded $10,000. It changed everything. Now, before we dive deeper into that jaw-dropping demand, let me give you a little backstory. Because to truly understand how things reached this breaking point, we need to go back to the very beginning. I'm Carolyn, by the way. And I grew up in a seemingly normal, middle-class suburb of Chicago, alongside my parents, Martha and Frank, and my younger sister, Vanessa. But even from my earliest memories, there was an invisible, unspoken hierarchy in our home. Vanessa? She was the golden child. I was the responsible one. You wouldn't even need words to tell the tale. Just flip through our old photo albums. There's Vanessa, beaming in her dance recital costumes, our parents' faces alight with pride. Here she is, buried under mountains of Christmas gifts. There, being celebrated for every tiny accomplishment. And me? I was the practical, reliable daughter. The one who never caused trouble. The one who learned, very, very early on, to take care of herself. By 16, I was already working at the local grocery store after school and on weekends. And no, it wasn't because we were struggling. We were comfortably middle class. But my parents had made it crystal clear, my wants and my needs. Those were my responsibility. When college application season rolled around, I remember the excitement, the nerves. I got into Northwestern. I sat at our kitchen table, the acceptance letter clutched in my hand, and watched my parents exchange worried glances. "We just don't have that kind of money set aside for you, Carolyn," my mother said, stirring her coffee, her voice flat. "We always figured you'd get scholarships or go somewhere less expensive." The unspoken truth hung heavy in the air. They were saving for Vanessa. Always for Vanessa. So, I took out student loans. I worked 30 hours a week all through school. I graduated with my business degree, buried in debt, but full of ambition. And Vanessa? She bounced between 3 different universities over 6 years, changing her major constantly, with my parents footing every single bill. My first real job? Bank teller. I was 22, fueled by a desire to build my career and demolish those student loans. I lived in a tiny studio, packed every single lunch. I remember calling my parents, so proud, to tell them about my first promotion. Personal banking associate. But the conversation was cut short. They were busy, helping Vanessa move into yet another new apartment after she dropped out of college yet again. At 25, I met Brian. He was charming, ambitious, and for a while, I thought he genuinely saw and appreciated me, my practical nature. We married 8 months later. A small, intimate ceremony. My parents, of course, complained it was too modest. We always imagined giving one of our daughters a proper wedding, my mother sighed dramatically. They contributed absolutely nothing to the cost. Brian and we both worked incredibly hard. Within 2 years, I was pregnant with my beautiful boy Dylan. It was during that pregnancy that I landed my biggest promotion yet, financial advisor at one of Chicago's most prestigious firms. At first, Brian seemed supportive. But after Dylan was born, everything changed. He worked later and later. He grew irritated by the baby crying. Eventually, he just admitted it. He wasn't ready for fatherhood. By the time Dylan turned 2, our divorce was finalized. Brian pays his child support on time, credit where it's due. But his involvement in Dylan's life? Minimal. Every other weekend quickly became once a month, then occasional holidays. I never badmouthed him to Dylan. But the cold, hard truth is, I'm raising our son almost entirely alone. And Dylan? He's the sweetest, most thoughtful, curious, and remarkably resilient little boy. He was born with a minor heart murmur, which means regular checkups, and he's always been prone to respiratory infections. The medical bills? Substantial, believe me. But I've built a good career. I can provide for him. What I can't give him, though, is an extended family who truly, genuinely cares. Through all those years, a deeply disturbing pattern emerged with my parents and Vanessa. They rarely, if ever, called to check in on Dylan or me. They certainly didn't visit unless, of course, they needed something. And increasingly, that something was cold, hard cash. First, it was my parents. They needed help refinancing their home. Why? Because they'd taken out a second mortgage to pay for Vanessa's latest graduate school attempt, which, no surprise, she abandoned after a single semester. I stepped in, helped them secure a better rate, covered the closing costs. That was $5,000. $5,000 I'd been meticulously saving for a special family vacation with Dylan. Gone. Then came Vanessa's credit card debt. A staggering $12,000. Racked up on clothes, lavish weekend trips with friends. My parents called me in a panic. Vanessa was crying every night, terrified of debt collectors. So, I drafted a payment plan. Covered the first 4 months myself just to get her back on track. Each time, it was the same song and dance, effusive thanks, hollow promises that this time things would be different. And each time, months of silence would follow. Until the next crisis. Meanwhile, if I ever dared to mention Dylan's achievements at school, or God forbid, his health concerns, I'd get distracted responses, or the subject would be abruptly changed. Your sister is just going through a difficult time right now, my mother would sigh dismissively. Whenever I tried to express my frustration, my exhaustion with this one-sided relationship, it was always the same. Family helps family, Carolyn. You're just better with money. It's always come easy to you. Easy? Nothing about my financial stability had ever come easy. I worked 60-hour weeks while raising a child alone. I budgeted every single dollar with surgical precision. I sacrificed vacations, new clothes, dinners out, all to build a secure future for Dylan and myself. But in my family's narrative, I was just lucky. Naturally good with money. As if my success had simply fallen from the sky, instead of being forged through years of relentless discipline and sheer hard work. This was the toxic family dynamic I had reluctantly, begrudgingly, accepted. The responsible daughter. The one always expected to rescue everyone else, while receiving almost no emotional support in return. I had tried to set some boundaries over the years, small ones, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened after Dylan's surgery. Last Wednesday, it started like any other morning. I was in the kitchen, carefully making Dylan's lunch, a turkey sandwich, crusts cut off just how he likes it, apple slices, a little cookie. Then he walked in, clutching his stomach. "Mommy, my tummy really hurts," he whispered, his face pale, pinched with pain. My heart clenched. At first, I thought, stomach bug. There had been one going around his second-grade class. No fever. I gave him some water. But within 20 minutes, he was curled up on the couch, crying, the pain getting worse, now localized on his right side. That's when the alarm bells shrieked in my head. Right side. Abdominal pain. Appendicitis. I didn't hesitate. I called my boss, a quick, choked explanation about a family emergency. Scooped Dylan up. Drove straight to the ER. The triage nurse took one look, and immediately, we were rushed back. Within an hour, the doctor confirmed my worst fears, acute appendicitis. Dylan needed emergency surgery. Now, before it ruptured. We need to operate within the next 2 hours, the surgeon, Dr. Bennett, told me, calm and professional. Good news is, it's a common procedure, but he'll need to stay here for at least 2 days to monitor for infection. As they prepared to take my tiny boy for pre-op testing, I stumbled into the hallway. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold my phone. I called my mother. "Mom," I choked out when she answered. "Dylan has appendicitis. We're at Memorial Hospital. They're prepping him for emergency surgery right now. I'm so scared. Can you and Dad please come?" There was a pause. A long, agonizing pause. "Oh, honey," she finally said, her voice surprisingly casual. "Today's my standing hair appointment at 11, and your father was going to clean the gutters." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears, trying to steady my breathing. "Mom," I pleaded, "your grandson is having emergency surgery. The hair appointment can wait." "Well, let me talk to your father and see what we can do," she replied, sounding utterly put out. "What time is the surgery?" "They said within the next 2 hours. Please, just hurry." "We'll see what we can do, Caroline," she said, a hint of irritation in her tone. "Don't be so dramatic. Appendectomies are routine these days." I hung up. Immediately dialed Vanessa. Straight to voicemail. I sent a frantic text explaining everything, begging her to come. Then I walked back to Dylan's bedside, pasting on a calm expression I absolutely did not feel. The next few hours were an absolute blur of exhaustion. Dylan was wheeled away for surgery. I was directed to a waiting area. I sat there, utterly alone, watching other families. Groups of 2, 3, 4 people, husbands comforting wives, grandparents distracting siblings with games and snacks. And there I was, checking my phone every 5 minutes, desperately hoping for some sign of life, some response from my family. After an hour, my mother texted, "Let us know when he is out of surgery. Your father has a backache today, so driving would be difficult." Nothing from Vanessa. A kind nurse, Janet, saw me sitting there. She brought me a cup of coffee. "Is someone coming to sit with you, Han?" she asked gently. I shook my head, unable to speak, afraid I'd burst into tears. "Well, I'll check on you when I can," she promised, patting my shoulder. "The surgical team for appendectomies is excellent here. Your little boy is in good hands." 2 hours later, Dr. Bennett found me. "The surgery went perfectly," he said, his smile radiating reassurance. "We caught it before it ruptured. Dylan's in recovery now. You can see him in about 20 minutes. The relief that washed over me was a physical thing. Overwhelming. I thanked him profusely, then immediately texted my parents and Vanessa the good news. My mother responded with a thumbs up emoji. My father sent, "Great news. Tell the little guy we love him." Vanessa, finally, an hour later. "Glad he is okay." Not one of them asked if I needed anything. Not one offered to visit. When I first saw Dylan in recovery, he was groggy, so small, so vulnerable in that hospital bed, hooked up to tubes and monitors. When his eyes fluttered open and he weakly whispered, "Mommy," I nearly broke down right there. "I'm right here, sweetheart," I assured him, holding his tiny hand. "The doctor fixed your tummy. You were so brave." He looked around the room. "Is Grandma here? Or Grandpa?" My heart shattered. I swallowed hard. "Not right now, buddy. But they sent their love, though. They're so proud of how brave you've been." "Will they come tomorrow?" he asked, before drifting back to sleep. "Maybe," I whispered, even though I already knew the answer. The next 2 days were an absolute blur of exhaustion. I slept in a recliner next to Dylan's bed, waking whenever he stirred. I tried to work remotely on my laptop during his naps, desperately trying to keep up with urgent client matters. The hospital Wi-Fi was awful. I had to step into the hallway for client calls, constantly racked with guilt and worry about being away from Dylan, even for 15 minutes. I sent regular updates to my family, photos of Dylan's recovery. Their responses? They grew briefer. My mother actually asked if I would be able to join them for Sunday dinner that weekend. Vanessa sent a meme about hospitals. My father? Complete silence. No one visited. No flowers arrived. No offers to bring food or to sit with Dylan so I could shower or even just breathe some fresh air. By Friday afternoon, when Dylan was finally discharged, a cold, hard resentment had settled deep in my chest. As I carefully helped my son into the car, so mindful of his incision, I made a silent promise to myself. Something, absolutely something, had to change. Back home, I settled Dylan on the couch with his favorite stuffed dinosaur and a Disney movie. I ordered pizza, a special treat, and sat beside him, stroking his hair as he dozed off and on, still weak from the surgery and medication. "Mommy," he asked during a quiet moment, his voice barely a whisper, "are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me?" "No, sweetie," I said, my heart breaking all over again. "Why would you think that?" "Because they didn't come see me in the hospital. Mason's grandparents brought him a teddy bear when he broke his arm." I took a deep, shaky breath. "Grandma and Grandpa love you very much, honey. They've just been very busy. It's not your fault at all." He seemed to accept it, but I saw the hurt in his innocent eyes. At 7 years old, my son was already learning a painful lesson about our family's priorities. That night, after Dylan was finally asleep, I allowed myself to cry. Really cry. For the first time since this whole ordeal began. I cried for my son, who deserved so much more support than he received. I cried for myself, always giving, rarely, if ever, receiving. And beneath the sadness? A simmering, righteous anger. An anger that was about to boil over in ways my family would never, ever expect. Sunday morning arrived, bright and deceptively clear. Dylan was recovering well, thank goodness. He was moving more comfortably, and even, joy of joys, asked for pancakes. A clear sign his appetite was returning. As I mixed the batter, my phone chimed. A text from my mother. "How is Dylan feeling?" It was the first time she'd initiated contact since before his surgery. I texted back, "Much better, thanks. Eating well today and moving around more easily." I put the phone down, started pouring batter onto the griddle. Before the first pancake even began to bubble, my phone chimed again. I glanced at the screen. I nearly dropped the spatula. The message read, "Good to hear. Listen, we need to talk about something important. Vanessa is engaged. Tyler proposed last night. She needs $10,000 for her dream wedding dress. Vera Wong. Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The boutique is holding it, but needs the deposit by tomorrow. Can you transfer the money today? Family helps family." I stared at the screen, rereading it 3 times, my brain struggling to process the sheer audacity. My son, my precious little boy, had just had emergency surgery. My family, my own flesh and blood, had not visited, had not offered any meaningful support. And now, just 3 days later, they wanted $10,000 for a wedding dress? I flipped the pancake. It was burned. I tried to compose myself. My first instinct was to unleash an angry torrent of words, but Dylan was sitting at the kitchen island, watching me with wide, curious eyes. "Is that Grandma?" he asked, hope flickering in his voice. "Yes, buddy." She says hi. The lie tasted bitter. "Your pancake's almost ready." I decided against an immediate response. I served Dylan his breakfast, made sure he took his medication, settled him with his Legos. Then I went back to my phone. 3 more messages. From Mom, "Did you see my text about Vanessa's dress? They need an answer today." From Dad, "Your mother told you about the dress. Vanessa found the one. $10,000. I know it sounds like a lot, but this is her special day. Call us." And another from Mom, "The boutique closes at 5 today. You're the only one with money to spare. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, a cold, dead feeling spreading through my chest. Money to spare. After paying thousands in medical bills that insurance barely touched. After taking unpaid time off work to care for my sick child. My phone rang again. It was my father. "Carolyn," he said, no preamble, just blunt demand. "Did you get your mother's messages about the dress?" "I did," I said, carefully. "I'm a little surprised by the timing." "What does timing have to do with anything?" he scoffed. "Your sister is getting married. Tyler comes from money. They're expecting a certain level of wedding. The dress is non-negotiable." "Dad," I said, my voice rising a little. "Dylan just had surgery. I've been dealing with that alone. I have medical bills, I've missed work. $10,000 for a dress is not something I can just pull out of thin air." He scoffed again. "You work in finance. We know you make good money. This is not the time to be selfish. Vanessa never asks you for anything." I nearly choked. The sheer, blatant lie of it. "Dad, she has never once called to check on Dylan. Not once during his entire hospital stay. Did she even tell you he had surgery?" "We've all been busy," he brushed me off. "Tyler's parents are planning an engagement party. There's been a lot to coordinate. This dress is a limited opportunity. Vanessa tried it on yesterday, it's perfect. She deserves this." The conversation spiraled. For several minutes, he dismissed every single concern I raised, hammering on family obligation and Vanessa's once-in-a-lifetime event. After he hung up, my mother called. Then another text, this one with photos. Vanessa, in what I assumed was the dress. A massive ball gown. Intricate beading. A cathedral train. It looked like something from a Disney movie, impractical, ostentatious. And then came the text that truly broke me. From Vanessa, "Thanks in advance. You're the best. Cannot wait for you to see me walk down the aisle in this. Tyler's family is so impressed with it. I need your banking details to give to the boutique for the deposit. Love you." Not a single word about Dylan. Not even a pretense of concern for her nephew, who had just undergone emergency surgery. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at that phone, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was cold, hard clarity. I had been used by my family for years. Treated as nothing more than a convenient ATM. And I had allowed it. Even worse, I had, by example, taught Dylan that this was what family relationships looked like: one-sided, exploitative, utterly devoid of genuine care. As a financial advisor, I'd counseled clients on financial boundaries. I'd even recognized signs of financial abuse in their relationships. Yet, I had utterly failed to apply those same standards to my own family. I had enabled their behavior time and time again, always, foolishly, hoping that next time would be different. Looking at my financial situation objectively, I was comfortable, yes, but certainly not wealthy. I had a mortgage on a modest 3-bedroom home. I'd established a college fund for Dylan, growing steadily, but needing years more of contributions. My emergency fund? This surgery had already dipped into it. My retirement savings were on track, but definitely not excessive. The $10,000 they were demanding? It would mean postponing necessary home repairs, cutting back on Dylan's extracurricular activities, or worse, dipping into my own retirement. All for a dress that would be worn once, for a sister who couldn't be bothered to visit her nephew in the hospital, or even ask meaningfully about his recovery. As these thoughts crystallized, one final text came through from my mother. We know this is a big ask, but remember all we have done for you over the years. Family supports each other. Your sister would do the same for you. That was when I knew exactly what I needed to do. That afternoon, while Dylan napped peacefully, I sat down at my desk. Laptop open. As a financial advisor, I knew I needed to approach this strategically, not just emotionally, though believe me, my emotions were running wild. First, I pulled up all my accounts, especially those intertwined with my family. Years ago, after my father had a brief health scare, I'd set up a joint emergency account with my parents. I'd initially put in $5,000, then added small amounts over time, intending it to be there for a genuine crisis. It now held just over $8,000. Out of curiosity, a grim curiosity, I checked the transaction history. What I saw stunned me. Dozens of small withdrawals over the past year. $200 here, $300 there. Not a single one of them had ever been discussed with me. The most recent withdrawal? Just last week, while Dylan was in the hospital, a whopping $600 with the memo line, advance for dress shopping. They'd been using my emergency fund for Vanessa's wedding expenses without so much as a peep. My blood boiled. But I forced myself to think clearly. This wasn't the time for a meltdown. This was the time for firm boundaries. I remembered a seminar from my financial advisor training on financial abuse and exploitation. The instructor had hammered home one point. Once financial boundaries are violated, they must be reestablished decisively and completely. Half measures only invite further exploitation. I picked up my phone and called Robert, my bank branch manager, who had become something of a mentor. Carolyn, he greeted me warmly. How's Dylan doing? I heard about his appendix. Finally, someone who had actually paid attention to my family crisis. I gave him a quick update on Dylan's recovery, then explained why I was calling. I need to make some changes to my accounts, Robert, especially regarding authorized access. And I need your advice on the best way to handle this. I laid it all out, the joint emergency account, the unauthorized withdrawals, the current $10,000 demand. Robert listened silently, patiently. Unfortunately, Carolyn, this type of family financial entanglement is more common than you might think, he said when I finished. The good news is, we can take steps immediately to protect your assets. With Robert's guidance, I spent the next hour meticulously crafting a comprehensive plan. First, I would freeze the joint emergency account. No more withdrawals without my in-person authorization. Second, I would establish a brand new, separate college fund for Dylan with ironclad protections. Impossible for anyone but him to access and only for educational purposes. Third, I would document everything. A clear record of their financial requests and my contributions to highlight the undeniable pattern of exploitation. And fourth, I would send a token response. A clear message before they even tried to access the emergency fund again. Are you sure about this last part? Robert asked, a hint of caution in his voice. It might escalate the situation. I'm sure, I said, my voice firm, resolute. This has been building for years. If I don't make a clear statement now, nothing will ever change. After hanging up with Robert, I logged into my banking app. I initiated a $1 transfer to Vanessa's account. The memo line? Short. Punchy. By a veil. This is all you get after abandoning Dylan. Then I completed the paperwork to freeze access to the emergency account and changed all permissions. I transferred the remaining balance to a new account, in my name only, leaving a symbolic $100 behind. I also set up Dylan's new educational trust with the strictest controls available. No one, not my parents, not Vanessa, not even me, would be able to withdraw that money for anything other than his education. It was completely, utterly protected. As I worked, a strange mix of emotions swirled within me. Anger, yes, absolutely. But also a powerful, growing sense of empowerment. For years, I had meekly accepted my assigned role, the responsible one, the provider, the family ATM. For the first time, I was taking control. Control of my own financial boundaries and, by extension, control of my relationship with my family. I knew the backlash would be immense. My mother would cry, accuse me of selfishness. My father would issue veiled threats about family loyalty. Vanessa would toggle between sweet-talking and vicious accusations. I'd seen this pattern before, whenever I dared to set even minor boundaries. But this time would be different. This time, I had concrete protections in place. This time, I wasn't just thinking of myself. I was thinking of Dylan. What kind of relationships did I want him to accept as normal? What kind of treatment did I want him to believe he deserved? As I finalized the last details, I heard Dylan calling for me from his bedroom. I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and went to check on my son. Whatever storm was coming, I was finally ready to weather it. For both our sakes. Monday morning dawned with the predicted storm. I had just dropped Dylan off at school. He insisted he was well enough, though I'd prearranged limited activity with his teacher. I walked into my office and my phone exploded. 6 missed calls from my mother. 4 from my father. 12 text messages from Vanessa. 2 voicemails. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and checked the first voicemail. It was my mother, her voice high-pitched, tearful, frantic. Caroline Elizabeth. What is the meaning of this $1? Is this some kind of sick joke? The boutique needs the deposit by noon today or Vanessa loses the dress. Call me immediately. The second voicemail was even more histrionic. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this is your sister's future happiness at stake. We raised you better than this. Your father is furious. Fix this mistake right now. Vanessa's texts? They started with feigned confusion. Hey sis, there must be some mistake with the transfer. Then moved to syrupy sweet-talking. Please, Caroline, you know how much this means to me. Before plummeting into outright hostility, you've always been jealous of me. If you ruin this for me, I will never forgive you. I put my phone on silent. Tried to focus on work. But by 10:30, my assistant, Lauren, knocked on my door. Caroline, your mother is here. She seems very upset. Should I send her in or tell her you're in a meeting? I sighed. I'd expected this. Just not quite so quickly. Send her in, please, Lauren. And no interruptions for the next 20 minutes, no matter what you might hear. Lauren nodded, her expression a mix of sympathy and intense curiosity. A moment later, my mother burst in. No greeting. Her face was blotchy with tears and pure, unadulterated rage. What have you done to the emergency account? She shrieked. Your father tried to withdraw the money for Vanessa's dress deposit, and the teller said it was frozen. Then we discovered you emptied it except for $100. This isn't just your money, Carolyn. I remained seated, keeping my voice as calm and professional as I could. That account, Mom, was created by me for genuine emergencies. Not for wedding dresses. And certainly not for the regular withdrawals you and Dad have been making without my knowledge or consent. We are your parents. We don't need your consent to use family money. It's not family money, Mom. It's my money. Money I earned and set aside in case you or Dad had a health crisis or some other genuine emergency. Over the past year, you've withdrawn nearly $4,000 in small amounts without once mentioning it to me. She waved a dismissive hand. Small expenses. Nothing worth bothering you about. But this dress is important, Caroline. The boutique won't hold it past noon. Vanessa is devastated. Dylan had emergency surgery last week, I said, my voice quiet, but cutting through her hysteria. None of you bothered to visit him. Or offer any meaningful support. He asked me if his grandparents were mad at him because they didn't come to the hospital. For a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of shame cross her face. But it was quickly replaced by indignant rage. We were busy. And hospitals are depressing. We send our love. A text message isn't support, Mom. Being there for family during a crisis? That's support. A $10,000 wedding dress is not an emergency. Her voice rose even higher, and I was grateful for the solid door of my office. You have always been jealous of Vanessa. Always trying to make her special moments about you. First, you refused to help, then you sent $1 as some kind of cruel joke. It wasn't a joke, Mom. It was a statement. I am done being the family ATM while receiving nothing but token attention in return. I have my own family to think about, Dylan. My priority is his well-being and his future, not Vanessa's one-day princess fantasy. The argument escalated. Her voice grew so loud I was certain everyone in the office could hear, despite the closed door. She dredged up every perceived slight from my childhood, accused me of ingratitude for all their sacrifices, and eventually resorted to threats. If you don't fix this right now, you can consider yourself no longer part of this family. Something inside me went utterly still at those words. Is that really how you measure family, Mom? By financial transactions? Because if withdrawing financial support means I'm not family, then what does it mean that none of you provided? Emotional support when Dylan was in surgery? Were you already not acting like family then? She had no answer. She just grabbed her purse, stood up. This isn't over. Your father will be calling you. You have until noon to make this right. As she stormed towards the door, she spun back for one final shot. And don't bother coming to Sunday dinner anymore if this is how you treat family. After she left, I sat at my desk, shaking slightly, but feeling strangely calm. I'd expected the anger, the confrontation, but facing it head-on was still jarring. Lauren poked her head in a few minutes later. Everything okay? I think the entire floor heard parts of that. I gave her a weak smile. Family drama, nothing to worry about. But by lunchtime, things had escalated further. My father called 4 more times. Each one went straight to voicemail. Vanessa's texts became increasingly frantic, then abusive. I muted the entire conversation. At 1:15, I got an unexpected call from Robert at the bank. Carolyn, I wanted to give you a heads up. Your parents just left my office. They were trying to override the freeze on the joint account, claiming it was an emergency situation and that you were having mental health issues, preventing you from making rational decisions. I gasped. They what? They also attempted to file a fraud report, claiming you had unlawfully transferred funds out of a joint account. I explained that as the primary account holder who created and primarily funded the account, you were well within your rights to make those changes. I appreciate the call, Robert. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. No need to apologize. I just wanted you to know they may try other avenues. They mentioned possibly contacting your firm's management to discuss your concerning behavior. I thought you should be prepared. After thanking Robert again, I immediately went to my supervisor's office. I needed to explain the situation before my parents could call with their false claims about my mental stability. Nancy, my supervisor for the past 5 years, listened with growing concern. I had no idea you were dealing with this kind of family pressure, Caroline, she said when I finished. If they do call, I will handle it appropriately. And if you need any time off to deal with this, just let me know. By the end of the workday, I had received notices that my parents had attempted 3 separate withdrawals from the now frozen emergency account. Each one declined by the system I had put in place. When I picked up Dylan from his after-school program, I was utterly exhausted from the emotional warfare. But my decision felt more resolute than ever. Something would have to give. And for once, it would not be me. Tuesday evening, my phone rang. It was my father's number. I'd ignored their calls all day, but something told me to answer this one. Carolyn, my father's voice was tight, seething with controlled anger. We need to have a family meeting tonight. 7 o'clock. At our house. I can't do tonight, Dad, I said. Dylan's still recovering, and I don't want to leave him with a sitter so soon after his surgery. Then bring him, he snapped. This needs to be resolved immediately. Is this about Vanessa's dress? I asked, my voice flat. Because my answer hasn't changed. This is about much more than the dress, he roared. Now you've made serious accusations and taken actions that affect this entire family. 7 o'clock. He hung up before I could respond. I stood in my kitchen, weighing my options. I could refuse. But that would only fuel their fire. If a confrontation was inevitable, maybe it was better to face it directly. On my terms. I called my neighbor, Miss Jenkins, a retired teacher who'd become a dear friend and occasional backup caregiver for Dylan. She readily agreed, understanding from my tone that this was vital. Take all the time you need, dear, she assured me. Dylan and I will bake cookies and watch that space documentary he's been talking about. Before I left, I gathered my ammunition. A spreadsheet detailing every single financial contribution I'd made to my family over the past decade, totaling more than $50,000. Bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawals from the emergency account. Copies of text messages showcasing their pattern of contact only when money was needed. Armed with evidence and a new, steely resolve, I drove to my parents' house. The same split-level home where I had grown up. As I pulled into the driveway, Vanessa's car was already there, along with an unfamiliar luxury SUV. Tyler's, I presumed. My mother answered the door. No greeting. She just turned, walking toward the living room where the others waited. My father was ensconced in his recliner, his usual position of authority during family discussions since my childhood. Vanessa and a tall, impeccably dressed man, Tyler, definitely, sat on the couch. Everyone looked up as I entered, their expressions a mix of anger and discomfort. Sit down, my father commanded, gesturing to a lone dining chair placed opposite everyone else. The hot seat. I remained standing. Before we start, I said, my voice clear and firm, I want to be absolutely clear about something. I am here to discuss the pattern of financial and emotional exploitation that has characterized our family relationships for years. I am not here to be guilt, manipulated, or bullied into providing money for Vanessa's wedding. Exploited? Vanessa shot to her feet, face flushed, aghast. Are you serious right now? Just because I asked for help with my wedding dress? This isn't about just the dress, Vanessa, I countered, my gaze unwavering. This is about years of one-sided support. About the fact that none of you showed up when Dylan was in surgery. And about the unauthorized withdrawals from the emergency account I established. What unauthorized withdrawals? Tyler spoke for the first time, looking genuinely confused. What emergency account? In that moment, it hit me. Vanessa's fiancé likely had no idea about our family's twisted financial dynamics. My mother quickly interjected, trying to shut me down. That's not relevant to the current discussion. Tyler, we're here to talk about Caroline's refusal to help with wedding expenses. I ignored her, addressing Tyler directly. Years ago, I created an emergency fund for my parents. Without my knowledge, they've been making regular withdrawals, including funds for Vanessa's wedding preparations. When I discovered this and froze the account, they tried to claim to the bank manager that I was mentally unstable. Tyler's eyebrows shot up. He turned, a sharp look at Vanessa. Is this true? You told me your sister refused to contribute to our wedding, not that your parents were already using her money without permission. Vanessa looked trapped. It's not like that. Mom and Dad said the account was for family needs, and the wedding is a family need. $10,000 for a dress is not a need, I stated firmly. And speaking of the dress, Tyler, did you know that was the amount being requested? Tyler's expression darkened. $10,000, he repeated, disbelief in his voice. Vanessa told me the dress budget was $2,000, which I already thought was excessive. The room went dead silent. My mother glared at me for exposing this. Vanessa suddenly found her manicure fascinating. I pulled out the folder of documentation. I think it's time we put all the cards on the table. I handed copies to each person, continuing as. They stared at the spreadsheet. $53,820. That's what I've contributed to this family over the past 10 years. That includes helping with the refinance of this house, paying off Vanessa's credit card debt, twice, covering Dad's medical bills when he had pneumonia, and dozens of smaller loans that were never repaid. I paused. What it doesn't include is any record of emotional support flowing in the other direction. The silence stretched heavy as they absorbed the information. Tyler looked increasingly uncomfortable, darting glances between Vanessa and my parents. Last week, I continued, my voice trembling slightly, my 7-year-old son had emergency surgery. I called each of you, asking for support. Not money. Just your presence. None of you showed up. Not once during his 3-day hospital stay. Dylan asked me if his grandparents were mad at him because they didn't visit. My mother had the grace to look utterly ashamed. But my father maintained his defensive posture. We explained why we couldn't come. You're making this into something it's not. Am I? I shot back. Because 3 days after you couldn't be bothered to visit your grandson in the hospital, you demanded $10,000 for a wedding dress. How, exactly, should I interpret those priorities? I turned to Tyler again. Did you know about Dylan's surgery? He shook his head slowly. No. I had no idea. Vanessa shot me a venomous look. Stop trying to make Tyler think badly of us. This is just your jealousy talking. You've always resented that Mom and Dad love me more. The room went deadly quiet. The ugly truth, always understood but never spoken, now hung raw and exposed between us. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Vanessa, that is not true. We love both our daughters equally. But the damage was done. Tyler was looking at his fiancée with new eyes, and my mother couldn't meet my gaze. I took a deep breath. This was it. The speech I'd been preparing since Sunday. Family means showing up for each other. It means celebrating successes and providing support during crisis. It means care flows in both directions, not just one way. For years, I've been the one expected to give, financially, emotionally, practically, while receiving nothing but token acknowledgement in return. That ends today. I'm not cutting contact with this family. I'm not saying I'll never help in a genuine emergency. But I am establishing firm boundaries. No more financial support without genuine relationship. No more one-sided giving. No more treating me like a convenient ATM while ignoring my son. I looked each of them in the eye. The money I have saved is for Dylan's future and our security. It is not available for designer wedding dresses or any other non-essential expenses. The emergency account will remain frozen until we have rebuilt trust, which will take time and effort on all parts. If you want a relationship with me and with Dylan, you are welcome to it. But it must be based on mutual care and respect, not financial transactions. The choice is yours. I stood up, gathering my purse and my folder. No one spoke a word as I walked toward the door. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, Tyler's voice stopped me. "Caroline," he said, his voice soft, apologetic. "I want to apologize. I had no idea about any of this, especially about your son's surgery. For what it's worth, I think you're absolutely right about family priorities." I nodded my thanks to him, noting Vanessa's shocked, furious expression. And I left, without another word. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years. As if a crushing burden, one I had carried so long I'd forgotten it was there, had finally been lifted from my shoulders. 2 months. That's how long it's been since that explosive showdown in my parents' living room. And so much has changed. Dylan? He's fully recovered from his surgery, back to his energetic, bike-riding, Lego-building self. His physical healing was straightforward. The emotional landscape, though, that's been far more complicated. For the first 3 weeks after the confrontation, there was complete silence from my family. No calls, no texts, not even the usual, superficial social media interactions. And I used that time. I focused on Dylan and myself, establishing new routines, new priorities. Free from the constant, low-level anxiety of anticipating the next financial request. I even started seeing a therapist, Dr. Morgan, who specializes in family dynamics and boundary setting. Our weekly sessions have been invaluable. She's helped me peel back layers, recognize patterns I'd normalized for so long, the subtle manipulation, the emotional withholding, the implied obligations that were never reciprocated. What you're describing, Carolyn, Dr. Morgan explained during one early session, is a classic family system with rigid roles. You were assigned the provider and fixer. Your sister, the one to be taken care of. Breaking out of these roles threatens the entire system, which is why the backlash was so severe. With her guidance, I've been working on maintaining my boundaries, while also processing the grief of losing the family relationship I'd always hoped for, but never truly had. It hasn't been easy, but it has been absolutely necessary. The financial freedom has been an unexpected, incredible liberation. Without the constant drain of family emergencies, I've actually been able to plan a summer vacation for Dylan and me. Our first real vacation that isn't just visiting relatives. We're going to a beach resort with swimming pools and kids' activities. Dylan talks about it constantly. His excitement is a daily, joyful reminder that I made the right decision. I also finally started that home renovation project I'd been postponing for years. Nothing extravagant. Just updating our worn kitchen cabinets. Replacing the stained carpet in the living room with beautiful hardwood floors. Creating a home that feels truly ours, not just a place we inhabit between work and school. Then, 6 weeks after the confrontation, the first crack in the family silence appeared. A letter. Not an email, not a text. An actual handwritten letter from Vanessa. I sat on my back porch, tea in hand, bracing myself before opening it. "Dear Carolyn," it began. "Tyler and I have postponed our wedding." My jaw dropped. After our family meeting, he had a lot of questions about our financial situation and expectations. We've been having long talks about priorities and values that haven't always been comfortable. She went on to acknowledge, albeit a little grudgingly, that she'd been oblivious to Dylan's surgery and health challenges. "I realize I haven't been the kind of aunt I should have been," she wrote. "I can't change the past, but I'm trying to think more about how my choices affect others." It wasn't a profound apology, not exactly. But coming from Vanessa? It was significant. She closed by saying she wasn't asking for anything, just opening a door to possibly rebuild some kind of relationship in the future. I wrote back a brief, polite note, thanking her for the letter, expressing hope that her conversations with Tyler would lead to a stronger foundation for their marriage. I didn't rush to forgive, or pretend everything was suddenly resolved. But I did leave the door open a crack. A week after that exchange, a birthday card arrived for Dylan. From my parents. Inside was a gift certificate to a local toy store, and a short note saying they'd like to take him out for ice cream sometime, if that would be okay with me. No demands. No guilt trips. Just a small, hesitant olive branch. I showed it to Dylan. His eyes lit up at both the gift card and the ice cream offer. "Can I see Grandma and Grandpa?" he asked, hope radiating from him. "We'll see, buddy," I told him. "Maybe we can meet them for ice cream next weekend. Just for a little while." I'm proceeding cautiously with these tentative reconnections. Dr. Morgan has helped me develop a framework for limited, controlled interactions. It allows me to test whether real change is possible without exposing myself or Dylan to further harm. Meanwhile, I've been building a different kind of support system. My work friends have truly become friends since I shared some of what I was going through. 2 colleagues and I now have a standing monthly dinner date where we take turns watching each other's children. And Miss Jenkins from next door? She's become something of a surrogate grandmother to Dylan. She takes him gardening, teaches him to bake. He proudly brought home chocolate chip cookies last week that they'd made together, saving the biggest one for me. Dylan himself has shown remarkable resilience through all of this. Kids are perceptive, you know? He knew something was off with our family dynamics long before I explicitly addressed it. Recently, as I was tucking him in, he asked a question that completely caught me off guard. "Mommy, is it okay not to give someone something, even if they really want it?" I sat on the edge of his bed, considering how to answer. "Yes, buddy. It's absolutely okay to say no, even to people you care about, if what they're asking for isn't right for you to give." "Why do you ask?" "Joey at school wanted me to give him my new action figure," he explained, and he said, "Best friends always share everything." But I didn't want to give it to him because it was special to me. Was that okay? I hugged him close. "That was absolutely okay, sweetheart. Real friendship isn't about taking things from each other. It's about respecting each other and caring about each other's feelings." He nodded, seriously. "That's what I thought. I told Joey we could play with it together at recess, but it would stay my toy." He got mad at first, but then he was okay. In that moment, I realized my son was already learning the lesson it had taken me 34 years to truly grasp. Healthy relationships require boundaries. And love without respect? It isn't really love at all. The journey ahead won't be easy. Family patterns don't change overnight, and there may be more confrontations, more difficult conversations to come. But for the first time in my adult life, I feel free. Free to define my own worth, outside of my utility to others. I'm building a life based on genuine connection, rather than obligation, and showing Dylan what healthy relationships really look like. The money I once might have sent for Vanessa's wedding dress? It's now in Dylan's college fund. The emotional energy I once spent managing my family's constant crises? It's now invested in building a joyful life with my son and nurturing friendships that flow both ways. Sometimes, the most profound act of love isn't giving people what they ask for, but showing them where the boundaries must stand. Money cannot buy family loyalty, but protecting your peace? That's truly priceless. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who were taking advantage of you? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, you deserve relationships that add to your life, not drain it.